Deuterium is something that is present in everything that we eat or drink. And when we get too much of it, it can affect various tissues and organs in our bodies. In this clip from my interview with Harry Sopanos, he reveals what the research has shown so far. But bear in mind that these are animal studies, and as such, it may not apply to humans. And if it does, it might be at a different range of exposure, so always take things with a grain of salt, do your n=1 experiment, and figure out what's going to work for you. Let's get to it. Most people who would watch this have probably come in contact with or seen an interview with Dr. Elizabeth Bryce and talking about eating a lot of fat, supplementing with iodine, and it seems like even though it is probably a big problem for a lot of people, just seems to be this thing that everyone hopped on the thyroid bandwagon. Not everyone has obviously seen the results that they're hoping for.
Yeah.
In which case it might have absolutely nothing to do with iodine. Maybe deuterium could explain it.
Unfortunately, at the moment, we have zero research in humans. So this is animal-based research. So let's just make that quite clear. On rats, rodents.
Right.
Now, what it actually shows is that when you put into their food, you've got the control. For rats, it's slightly higher than us. It's about 146 parts per million. They put them on 10, and the other one was, in the multiple thousands to see how it affects the actual thyroid, because they were trying to actually accelerate the effects within 21 days. So unfortunately, there's very limited research in this space. But what they did notice was the effect on the actual thyroid hormones. The T3, which, is an important one, it actually went down in the high deuterium. So, and especially the free T3 went down. Well, there wasn't a lot of difference in T4, but there was the low deuterium one had a better free T3 and free T4 as well. So it was quite interesting in that regard. The other thing is that what we do notice is that the sodium iodine symporter, that actually goes up also with things like cancer, tumor growth, thyroid growth, that people get from hypothyroidism or severe hypothyroidism in that regard. And deuterium also plays a role in that as well. There's quite a substantial difference. Like you've got the low deuterium, the control being down here, and the actual NIS levels for the deuterium is just bang right up here. The difference is just marked, quite clear. And we know that when you've got these sort of thyroid conditions or nodules, immediately the doctors will actually look at that. They'll do a test and look at those levels as well. And when you lower the deuterium levels, that level comes down. So it's quite clear that it's definitely deuterium is having a negative effect. We know that it also increases in hypothyroidism, which is what most people sort of have as a problem. Now, obviously, it doesn't increase to the same level as when you've basically got tumor growth or whatever, but it still increases in that regard. And there's definitely a strong connection, because here we're only looking, the animals are on the same chow. There's no difference in diet. There's no difference in you could say diet and lifestyle for the rats. But the only difference is the deuterium level that's actually been put into their water affecting these markers. So it's quite clear that it is having an effect. And sort of how I've extrapolated for humans, even though we've got zero research, I'm extrapolating. Another mammal should respond in a similar way, that when people are on high deuterium diets, like on a SAD diet, that's where you find the majority of people who have got hypothyroidism. That's where the highest amounts are. And when people go on low-carb diets, if they rapidly lose weight, especially on a very therapeutic ketogenic diet, and they've actually consumed a lot of deuterium in the past, that could be what is actually causing them not only plateaus, but also the effect of really worsening their thyroid issues. Everybody blames the diet, but they're not actually looking at the deuterium side as well, because most people are ignorant, don't know about it, pretty much.
Yeah. Do you know anything about the mechanism behind the sodium iodine symporter, all of that? Do you know about, have they found
It's
out
it,
what the mechanism behind that
it
is?
it seems that through the pituitary thyroid sort of axis that it's affecting and it's affecting also the to some extent the TSH, but it seems to be affecting the transporter. But obviously, that more research needs to be done to validate that completely. These are early, looking at it. I'm still trying to get my head around researching. So I'm not going to say definitively this is the case, but it seems that there is definitely an effect that we notice on the thyroid from deuterium. So it's quite clear that it's having an effect on the thyroid hormones and the thyroid functioning in general. So it's definitely having a negative effect. The more deuterium is in there, the worse the effect. But even at a very low deuterium level, there's a few markers that, are very similar to what you would get in the when you're having high deuterium as well. And it sort of makes sense because, as I've always said to people, prolonged very low deuterium wouldn't be healthy either,
Mm.
because we require a certain amount in our system. The problem is we don't know exactly what the threshold is in humans, because that's what's important, not rodents. But I would say what you would find in a species appropriate diet based on the nitrogen and carbon isotope data that we've got from the collagen of the bones of our ancestors, we know quite clear what we were for thousands of years. And we don't see the sort of pathology you would find in people that don't have those isotope values. We only notice when people, like Egypt, where the high grain production, we see in the hieroglyphs the first description of a heart attack and many other things like that. So when archaeologists look at the actual bones of our ancestors, they look and see, mineral deficiencies like iron deficiency, the white little dots that you get on the cranium, and deformities and a whole lot of other things in the musculoskeletal structure. So it's quite clear that, certain diets have a benefit, certain diets don't, and the isotope values back up that a more carnivorous diet or eating more animal foods is going to be better and healthier for you. Now, the exact thresholds, mechanistically proven, there we still need more research to basically, pin that down. But I think it's enough to say that high deuterium intake from any source is going to have deleterious effects, and stored deuterium from any source has the potential of causing problems even when you're shifting to a more appropriate diet. And then people are saying, why aren't I getting the results that that person is getting? And that's when I ask them, tell me your history, your dietary history, and I'll explain it to you. Because usually when they do go into their dietary history, because I'm a sufferer myself,
Yeah.
I basically released heaps and heaps and ended up with brain fog, pain all over my body, and I'm going, this isn't normal. But I was cooking every single meal for about well over a decade, because I just used to, my favourite food was chips and fish fingers, and I nearly had that 5 times a week at home in the evening in seed oils. And I pretty much, because I was a cheapskate, I didn't even want to throw out the oil. I reused it multiple times. So, your great grandfather lives 107. Your father is nearly 90 now and really beyond doing a few things inappropriate that caused him some issues and other things like that. But he gets hit by a vehicle and, he's still fine. Others would have fallen to pieces. And these people, like my great grandfather, consumed. He hated vegetables, just consumed dairy and meat in the mountains. He was pastoral type people like the Sardinians and the Koreans in the mountains. Just very much salt of the earth people that just had their animals and stuff like that, and at most had some seasonal vegetables here or there, but very little. I wasn't going to have that. And I wasn't going to have that because I threw away that heritage, my food heritage, and I adopted something which was toxic and was sold to me as healthy, which it wasn't, which I know now. Hitting yourself over the head isn't going to solve the problem. It's just having the realization that you were hoodwinked into adopting a lifestyle and diet that actually caused you damage. And you need to be aware that throw the vanity out of your mind. It's not a race who gets to be the thinnest. It's health, long-term health and long-term survivability is more important. Everybody else looks at other things other than the deuterium consequences. You know, the machinery in the body, all the machines, those nano machines are not working properly. That's a big thing. That's way bigger than just having some little deficiency or, mineral deficiency or whatever. That's like the the foundation. If your body can't produce enough energy, it can't heal, can't repair, it's going to deteriorate very, very rapidly. Young people can heal very fast because they've got high mitochondrial density, especially the healthier young people, and they are becoming less and less as time goes on for the obvious reasons because of just the poison food supply.